I saw my sales start to increase, almost double, even triple during Q4.
How do you typically find your niches?
Well, usually I'll use, so when everyone's zigging, you want to zag, you want to try and be different.
Welcome to Print on Demand Wisdom episode number 10. Today I spoke with Mike, who sold 10,000 of POD products over the past few years on Amazon and Etsy. And we discussed a lot of different topics, including how to increase your Etsy sales, how to get out of tier 10 more quickly on Amazon merch, and how to find the best niches. At the end of the podcast, we also went over a separate passive income business model, which I personally had not heard of myself. Mike has also got a YouTube channel where he shares all of these strategies, which will be linked in the description. And without further ado, let's get started. How and when did you get started with print on demand?
Well, I actually got started on print on demand about in 2017. Before that, I was actually self-publishing ebooks on KDP and audiobooks. And I was in a part of a master group, where we would get together like every Saturday, a mastermind group. And some of the guys in that mastermind group were actually selling on Merch by Amazon. And I didn't know what it was. They told me about it, sounded interested. So I actually applied. And it took me like about a year to get accepted. And once I finally got accepted, I uploaded a couple designs. I didn't really know what I was doing. I priced them at like $24.99 back then. Merch was paying more in royalties, and I got like 2 sales. I made like $20. And once I saw that, I was like, okay, there's opportunity here. And I basically got hooked from that point.
Interesting. So you started in 2017, but you said it took you a year to be accepted. Did you have to apply multiple times, or?
No, I just applied once, and it was actually more than a year. It was like a year and 2 months. And I kept checking, and I pretty much gave up because I never got the acceptation. And then I just checked again, and I was accepted.
Oh, wow.
So don't give up.
That's lucky. Interesting. And what's been your favorite part about print on demand?
Yeah, the thing that I really like about print on demand is that it's low cost. Like I do audiobooks and ebooks, and that's expensive. I have to pay the writers, I have to pay the narrators. But with print on demand, all I have to pay for is basically a subscription with Photoshop and a subscription with Creative Fabrica. And so that's, that's like $15-20 a month. And all I have to do is just come up with the ideas and put in the work. So it's, I can get a design for free, or maybe like, there's very little cost, and it can make me a lot of money, and it's very passive, so that's another thing, that it's just direct deposits into my bank account pretty much every month. So that's why I like it so much.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I recommend print on demand to anyone as well, is you don't really need much more than your time, do you? You need internet, you need a laptop, but there's a lot of free ways to do the designs, and even if you get Creative Fabrica, it's not a big investment really. Photo P would be an alternative to Photoshop, so that's another way to create the designs for free. And yeah, I mean, if I think back to some of my regular sellers, I know that one of them, I think I paid someone on Fiverr literally $5 or $10 for that design, and it's turned into a regular seller for me for years to come. So yeah, very, very low cost input, and you can get a lot back from it. So that's definitely a good point. But in terms of the different processes attached to print on demand, so research, design, uploading, which of those is like your favorite part?
By far, my favorite part is niche research. I love, just having a cup of coffee and just getting on the computer and just spending like 30 minutes, an hour, just trying to find those niches that are low in competition, that are selling, that I can, make money from. So niche research by far is my favorite. I also like designing too. It took me a lot of time to learn how to design, but over the years I've gotten better. Plus I use some like clip art from Creative Fabrica to help me as well. But yeah, so definitely niche research and then designing.
Well, that's interesting because I don't really like niche research. I know I've got a few videos about it, but personally doing it, I'd much rather spend time designing stuff or working on like automating different processes. Like that's what I feel passionate about. So in terms of niche research, then, if that's your favorite topic, how do you typically find your niches?
Well, usually I'll use Merch Informer. That's what I've kind of always used. They have a website where you can just type in. Actually, you don't have to type in anything. You just basically leave it blank, hit enter, and then you just change the filter to newest, and it will show you what some of the newest trending niches are. And I also like to use Flying Research as well. That's a really good one. So you can also just check out what's trending there. and basically just spending time, on Amazon and just seeing what is selling, seeing, the BSRs, and things like that.
You mentioned trends right there and like new sellers. Is that mainly what you go after or look for? Is it like newer trending niches or maybe seasonal trends? Or do you also look for evergreen niches?
Yeah, I've kind of evolved. Like before, I was really into like evergreen niches. I thought that was like where it was at. But now I've gotten really into like the current year or the upcoming year niches. So like last year around like September, October, I was really focusing on 2024 niches. And when I did that, I started to see a big increase in my sales. Like I was always like a $500 a month merch seller. When I started focusing on these 2024 niches, I saw my sales start to increase, almost double, even triple during Q4. So that's kind of what I'm focused on now. Basically, the current year and upcoming year. So, like this morning, I woke up and I uploaded a bunch of designs for the 2025 niche. That's what I'm trying to get in early so I can beat the competition. And in those 2025 niches, there's really barely any competition, So that's kind of where I'm focused on now. I try to focus on niches for the current year or for the upcoming year.
That is really good advice, and something I wouldn't like. I personally wouldn't think in January or in February. I wouldn't really think about designing for the next year, but it is really smart because now most people are jumping onto the current year's trends. So nobody will really be thinking about 2025 yet. So that's definitely good advice. I also noticed you mentioned in one of your videos that you saw some niche ideas on Instagram. So how have you found that social media has helped you sometimes with your niche research?
Actually, yeah. So actually, I use TikTok. So I'm a big like TikTok junkie. I love watching TikTok. I find it very entertaining. But I find a lot of good evergreen niches on there to basically make videos about because people also like evergreen niches. And so what I'll do is I'll just scroll through my feed and just whatever the video is about, I'll basically just type that niche into Merch Informer and I'll just see if it what the competition is. I'll see if they have BSRs. And if the competition is low and it's selling, then, for me, in my opinion, it's a good evergreen niche to get into. So TikTok is a good way to also find evergreen niches for niche research.
Interesting tip. I'm very anti social media because I feel like it wastes more of your time than it actually gives you any value back. But no, I never really thought about that. You could use, especially if the videos have a lot of views, right? Then clearly people are interested in those topics. So checking back on the marketplaces whether there's an interest for t-shirts is quite a good, unique way of looking for niche ideas. So yeah, anyone who hasn't tried that, maybe worth a shot. And I have also occasionally throughout the years, I have seen the odd design on social media and thought, oh, this looks like a cool idea. And I looked at Amazon. There was no one offering that sort of design. And sometimes it's worked for me. Sometimes it's not. Like sometimes there's just no interest. But it's worth trying these sort of, I guess, more unique techniques that maybe don't go with the norm of look through bestsellers or trending niches on Merch Informer. So that's a good tip. How can people get out of tier 10 or out of the lower tiers? Do you have any advice for those? Because that's obviously the hardest stage of Amazon Merch is sort of escaping the lower tiers.
Yeah, that's probably the number one question I get on my YouTube channel. What I like to recommend for people is to focus on niches that get a lot of sales in one order. So there's certain niches where people will buy like 4, 6, 8, even 10 shirts in just one order. And so like some examples of those niches would be like the cruise niche. So when someone is going to go on a cruise, they're probably taking their family. So they're going to buy like 4 t-shirts. Same thing with like the girls trip niche. So you could take like the girls niche, girls trip and cross niche with like any type of location. And when people buy those type of shirts, they're going to be buying for them and all their friends. So you're going to get large orders. Another really good niche is also to take like any type of high school sport, cross niche it with senior and the current year or the upcoming year. Because when people buy those shirts, they're going to be buying for the whole team or for all the seniors on the team. So you'll get big orders. And actually it's one of my most popular videos actually. People just they'll buy like 4, 6, 8, even 10 t-shirts at one time. So you can get out of tier 10 with just one sale basically because they're buying so many t-shirts in that order.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I've entered some of the girls trip niches as well before. And what's usually worked for me is, like you said, girls trip plus a specific location, but then also adding the current year, right? That makes it even more specific
Yes.
and relevant. And yeah, usually those orders are bigger. So that is a good tip. because then you only need your shirt to be found once or twice to hit the 10 sales target, rather than having to get 10 people to find and buy your shirt individually. So that's definitely good advice. Pretty cool. And I'm sure there's a lot more niches than just cruise, girls' trips, and the other one you mentioned right there. Like the cruise one is quite an obvious one, I would say. But yeah, there will be a lot of opportunities where you can sell multiple shirts to the same customer. So look out for those. And I mentioned right there that the cruise niche is quite competitive or quite well known. And I had a comment recently on one of my videos that print on demand is too saturated. It's too late to start now. Like if you're looking to start, just give up now. What's your opinion on that, or your take on that? Do you think it's too saturated for new people?
No, not at all. Not at all. There's so much opportunity. I mean, if you think about it, those like 2024, 2025 niches, there's always going to be a new year around the corner. So there's always going to be new niches there. There's always like new design trends. So like, remember when the sunset, the retro sunset trend came out, then there was like the curvy, groovy text, so every year, every 2 years, there's going to be like a new design style. Like the Era one right now is a really popular one. And then you always just have like trending stuff in the news. Like a couple of years ago, it was, COVID. We couldn't make designs about that, but we could make designs kind of like around it. Then it was about like the vaccine, and then it was about inflation. So every year there's going to be like some type of big kind of news story that we could take advantage of. Like right now it's like election, so we could, focus on those type of niches. So I highly disagree with people that say that POD is oversaturated. There's so much opportunity. All you have to do is just kind of educate yourself, get creative, and just put in the work, and you'll get results.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point there. Like you have to educate yourself and put in the work. If you only sort of scratch the surface and you create a few dog designs, then it's probably too saturated for you if you're entering the most obvious niches. So like unicorn t-shirt, if you're trying to sell that, you don't do it. But no, there's always new niches coming up, new topics, whether it is stuff that's on the news or specific to that current year. And also with all of these new tools that are coming out, AI tools, you can kind of do a lot of the research, the design process, the listing SEO. You can do it more easily. So you can get ahead of the people that are used to the old processes and that don't want to change and that aren't really putting in the effort anymore. So I definitely think it's not oversaturated as well. I've got multiple people in my community server that are sharing their success stories that are starting, throughout the last year and then still managing to get a decent amount of sales. So it's not impossible. Speaking of new tools and AI tools and that sort of stuff, I've noticed in your videos as well that you use some of those. So what AI tools would you recommend for print on demand?
Well, there's two that I like. Probably the best one is going to be Midjourney, which you probably know about, your audience knows about. But Midjourney is really good, especially for like Etsy. Like patterns, clip art. Like I have a really good sugar skull PNG listing that's selling on Etsy. It's a bundle. Those tend to do well on Etsy. Those bundle listings. So definitely Midjourney I really like, and then also Ideogram, which I just recently found, actually from watching your channel. I like that ideogram because you can make a design and also add text. Now the text always isn't perfect, so sometimes it takes a couple tries. But I definitely like using Midjourney and ideogram for designs. ChatGPT I don't really use too much for print on demand, but definitely Midjourney and ideogram.
Yeah, ideogram is looking pretty good now. I haven't used it for a while. But when I saw your videos and you using it, it seems to have improved quite a bit. And it's still free, isn't it? It's still free to use.
Yes.
Awesome. So that's kind of a good alternative to Midjourney, to DALL-E 3 if people can't afford the subscriptions yet, isn't it? So you mentioned Etsy there as well, and that you sell bundles. So why don't you touch a bit on your Etsy journey or what you're selling on there?
Well, after I got started on merch, I also started educating myself about Etsy. And to be honest, I didn't really know what it was. The first couple of years, I didn't really know what I was doing. And then, I started taking it actually really serious about after 2 years or so. And I started to get good results. And then when the pandemic happened, I saw my sales just like take off because everybody was at home buying stuff. They weren't buying stuff at t-shirts, or they weren't buying stuff at stores. And I just got really good at Etsy. I actually make more money on Etsy than I do on Merch by Amazon because I just feel like I have a really good grasp on how the algorithm works. I do a really good job with like my customer service and getting reviews and getting customers to come back and purchase from me again. I sell both print on demand products and digital products. So like, t-shirts, mugs, but I also sell like wall art, PNG files, SVG files, things like that.
Okay, interesting, interesting. Do you have any examples or tips for people? You mentioned the customer service side of things right there, of like how do you make people come back and leave good reviews? Do you have any strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. So every customer that I get on Etsy, I send them 4 specific messages. So if it's a physical product, the first message that I will send, I'll just thank them and let them know that I received their order, and then I'm going to send them a tracking link once it ships. Then once it ships, I'll send them the second message saying, here's your tracking link. Then the third message, I'll check to see if the order has been delivered, and if it's been delivered, I'll send them the third message, saying, hey, I saw that your order arrived. I just want to make sure you're happy with your purchase. And if you are happy with your purchase, if you could kindly leave me an honest review, I'd really appreciate it. And then the fourth message, when they leave me a review, or if they leave me a review, I will just message them saying, I saw that you left me a great review. I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to do that. And that has helped me dramatically increase my sales, increase my reviews, increase customers coming back to me. I'm almost at 10,000 sales on Etsy, and I have 2,000 reviews. So that's like 20%, which I think is pretty good.
That is really good, yeah. And I like the fact that you said you're asking people for honest reviews and not doing that sort of shady tactic where like, if you leave me a 5-star review, I'll give you a discount code or something like that. You actually want honest feedback. That's probably more effective anyway, I would say, rather than pushing for a 5-star review. So that's cool. So you're doing quite well on Etsy there. That's amazing. And you've got physical and digital products mixed in the same store, have you? Or
Yeah, so I have both physical and digital products on my Etsy store. A lot of people ask me about that. Like, does that work? Is that allowed? And it is. It works. Because I'll tell people, like, me personally, I'm a customer on Etsy, so sometimes I will buy things on Etsy. Like, usually it's like digital, like products, like PNG files. And a lot of the times I'll just search for the what I'm looking for. I'll see it. I'll basically just click on it, look at the listing, add it to my cart, and check out. I rarely ever go to the store, to see what they have. Sometimes I do, but for the most part, I just, search, click, add to cart, and check out, purchase. And even if I were to go to the store and I saw that they were selling physical and digital products, I probably wouldn't be like, okay, I'm not going to buy from this person because they're selling, both. So I don't think it's a big deal.
yeah, true. That's a good point. Like, I also think most customers won't really scan your shop and evaluate it to that extent. Most people would just find the stuff in the search results and add it to the cart and not really think about it much. So yeah, I mean, I've always said make separate stores because it kind of looks more neat or more organized, more categorized. But I don't think if you mix the two, that's necessarily going to cripple your sales. If people want to start print on demand in 2024, what would you suggest to them in terms of marketplaces to start on, tools to use, stuff like that?
Well, if you're not accepted onto Merch by Amazon, I would recommend starting on Redbubble or TeePublic, not because you're going to get a whole bunch of sales, but just to kind of like get your reps in. Like if you're at the gym, you want to like basically learn how to design, niche research, learn how to design, learn the upload process. You just kind of want to get good at print on demand, the whole process of it. And then once you get accepted to merch, then you could take what you've learned from Redbubble and put it onto Merch by Amazon. Because I used to do really good on Redbubble and TeePublic, but ever since they made those changes, it's just been like downhill. I used to make like $200, $300 a month, and now it's like $20 a month. So I don't even waste my time too much anymore on Redbubble, to make sales. But yeah, I would start on Redbubble, learn, educate, and then take what you've learned over to Merch by Amazon, and then even Etsy as well.
Yeah, that's good advice. That's typically what I tell people as well. Redbubble and TeePublic, they're not going to make you thousands, and it's been the same experience for me since the tiers. Like sales have dropped for sure, but the analogy of the gym is really good because at the start, when you start going to the gym, it's not about benching 200 pounds, is it? It's about starting with the low weight and just getting used to the form. Like, how do you actually do the exercise? And then once you're comfortable with the whole process, that's when you can then up the weight and maybe move to Etsy, move to Amazon, where it's a bit more complicated. Or, Amazon is hard to get in, but Etsy, I think the whole setup and listing things, that's all a bit more difficult. So it's good to start on a platform like TeePublic, Redbubble. where it's free as well, because Etsy isn't really free, is it? I noticed in your videos that you get quite a lot of daily sales, but at the same time, your royalty seems to be quite low, like if you compare it to the amount of sales. So why don't you go into your pricing strategy a bit with Amazon merch?
Yeah, good question. So the majority of my listings that are selling right now are like 2024 designs. I'll take like certain niches and I'll cross niche it with 2024. And I have them priced low at like $13.99, $14.99. And the reason why is I'm just trying to get as many sales as possible to increase my chances of getting a review or several reviews. Because once a listing on Merch by Amazon or on Amazon has some reviews, it converts a lot better. It's going to sell more basically. So once they start to get some reviews, then I will start bumping up the price to, I still want to stay competitive, so I'll probably go like $17.99. Now for my evergreen niches, if I'll start it off at $13.99, but once it gets a sale, I'll just bump it up straight up to $19.99 or $22.99 because it's an evergreen niche. It's probably low in competition. So evergreen niches, I start low and then bump up high once it gets its first sale. And then for the trending niches, I'll start low, wait for it to get a review. Then once it gets a review, then I'll bump it up slightly to like $17.99.
Do you ever move those trending designs up to 19.99 as well once they've got like even more reviews? Do you still up the price?
No, I haven't yet. I should probably test that. I'm kind of nervous.
Yeah, you don't want to lose the BSR, do you? It's always the
Yeah.
risk. Maybe when it gets closer to the events, then it would make sense. If it is linked to a specific event like the election, and you've been selling it at 17.99 all year, that I would say that's the point to up the price and then actually profit a bit more. But yeah, interesting. I also saw a hot take from you about the color selection. So most people, including me, usually say, only choose 3 or 4 colors for the t-shirts because then people are less likely to struggle with making the choice. But I think you mentioned in one of your videos that you tend to now select all 10 color options. How's that been working out for you? Has that helped with these sales, do you think?
Yeah, it has, especially for like those cruise niches, those cruise designs and the girls trip designs. I used to be like what you said, I would just upload to black, navy, and gray. But now what I do is I'll make a design and then I'll upload it basically to all the dark colors. And then I'll take that same design and just change the color of the font to basically black. And then I'll upload that design to all light colors. So I always design for both black t-shirt and white t-shirt. And that's a really good tip because everybody is just uploading to black, and so when everyone's zigging, you want to zag. You want to try and be different, and there is a market for white t-shirts. So just think of that when you're designing up design for both black t-shirts and also for white t-shirts.
Yes, I agree with you. I've also I tend to think that especially niches that are aimed at women, it does make a lot of sense to create a lighter version because a lot of the light Amazon colors they apply to women. I think like the light blue, the pink. I think white is more of a female color as well on the t-shirt. So it is definitely worth trying. And if you have the base design anyway, and it only takes you a few seconds to change the text, it's worth it. And this is why I like doing these podcasts, is because just because me or multiple people recommend only choose 3 colors doesn't necessarily mean you can make sales with more colors. In some niches or some scenarios, it might work better. So it's always worth trying out these things for yourself, and it might work better for you if you select 10 colors. So yeah, that's definitely an interesting tip, interesting insight. I think the biggest struggle for people with Amazon merch is typically actually getting accepted into the program, because most people that do apply tend to get rejected. So do you have any tips to get into the program? Do you remember at all what you put into your application?
Yeah, honestly, I don't because it was so long ago. But a couple tips that I would give is like when you're first like applying or entering your personal details, you just want to be honest. You don't want to say you're from somewhere else. Just be honest with your personal details. And then when it goes to the next section, I think they ask you for like what category you want, and there's like a drop down menu, several to pick from. I heard that the novelty T-shirt business one is the one that tends to work the best. And then when you have to like write the little paragraph about yourself, I would recommend you say that you're a designer, that you sell on other platforms, and that you also, maybe you might want to say that you do like ads so you can actually bring traffic to Amazon. I think they're going to like that if you say that you're a designer, you have experience designing on other platforms, you can bring traffic to the platform. And I've heard if you do those things, that will help you.
Yeah, those are definitely some good points to include because Amazon does want, they want quality designs, even though not all the designs are necessarily quality, but in theory, they want quality designers. They want people to bring traffic to their platform and to help increase Amazon sales. Like that's the main goal. So think about what would Amazon want to hear from you. But for those people who get rejected with their applications, like, don't give up. I've heard numerous times, like over the years of doing this, that people have tried multiple times and they've gotten in maybe at attempt number 4 or attempt number 8, attempt number 10 even. So just because you get rejected from your application, don't take it personal. There's just so many people that want to get in, and it's definitely possible to get in even after multiple attempts. So don't give up. It's definitely worth the hassle. Spending the extra time on Redbubble or TeePublic is not really going to pay off compared to putting in that same time to try and get accepted into Amazon merch, because the potential on Amazon is just so much higher. So one thing you mentioned at the start of the interview is that you used to sell or you sell audiobooks. Is that like a different business model, passive income stream that people could get into?
Yes. So another way that I make money online is by selling ebooks, paperback books, and audiobooks. And I'm talking like fiction books. So I do short horror stories, and I also do romance books as well. And the romance niche is huge, at least in the United States. I think in England too, especially with like the ebooks. So basically, the process for that is everything's outsourced except for the covers. I just know how to design covers, but you can also outsource that as well. But basically, I will find ghost writers on Upwork, and I'll hire them to write me a 10,000 word story. It usually costs about $100 or so, and then I'll have it proofread or edited, which is like another 10 or $20. And then once I have it edited, I will send it out to a narrator. And narrators can actually get pretty expensive, but if you do a little research and some digging, you can find ones for some good prices. Usually, for 10,000 words, it's about $100. So, about $220 for like a whole book. But then once you have it all ready to go, then all you have to do is just upload it onto KDP. And then once it's uploaded onto KDP, you can upload it onto Amazon's audiobook website, which is called ACX. And then it's basically the narrator will do most of the work for you. And that's basically the process right there. And it's completely passive. I don't do any marketing. I depend all on organic SEO keywords.
Okay, so it's just the initial investment of getting the story written, getting it narrated. That's pretty interesting. I'd heard of KDP obviously, but the whole audiobook side of things I didn't even know exists. So do you find the narrators on Upwork as well?
No, I mean, you can find them there, but I like to find mine on the actual ACX platform, Amazon's audiobook platform.
Okay.
And you can actually have it set up where you can just do a royalty share. So if you don't have money for the to pay the narrator, you can do a royalty share where you don't pay anything, but every time the book sells, anytime the audiobook sells, you'll just split the royalty like 50-50 or something like that.
That's interesting, yeah. It's a good way for people to try it out if they don't want to invest. And I'm guessing you would probably want to have an American or English speaking narrator, right? If that's your main market of people that are listening.
Yeah, they're going to be more expensive, but yeah, it's really important that you get someone with a good voice. So check their reviews, make sure you like their voice, because that's like one of the biggest things in getting the sale for audiobooks.
And do you still do this, or is it just passive income at this point where you don't really put any work into it? Or do you still add new books occasionally?
Yeah, so I've actually published like over 250 romance books, audiobooks. Yeah, I used to be really into it, but now I'm just doing horror stories, short horror stories. But I plan to get back into it because the most money I've ever made online is actually with ebooks and audiobooks.
You say romance and horror. Do you do extra sort of niche research in that area as well for like specific? I don't even know. Is there like sub niches of horror that might be like more popular and less competition? Is that a thing?
Yeah, there's sub niches, but there's a lot more sub niches in the romance niche. So there's like cowboy romance, millionaire romance, shapeshifter, paranormal. I mean, the list goes on and on. And then you can get into like erotica books too, which is just even more niches. So it's pretty diverse.
Right. Do you have any videos on your channel about that specific business model or how to get into it?
Yeah, actually, I made one, basically like showing my income from one of the websites that I use to self publish my audiobooks. There's another website also called Authors Republic. That's another website where I sell my audiobooks on. Basically, they're like I think it's called like an aggregator. So they'll put your book onto Amazon, they'll put it onto Google Play, they'll put it onto iTunes, and there's a whole bunch of these websites that sell audiobooks. So I do have a video on my channel about that.
Cool. Yeah, anyone who's watching and who is into niche research or wants to find more niches, check out Mike's channel because he's got a ton of really good content about evergreen niches, trends, how to create the designs for them, and this business model as well. Would you say there's still potential with writing these short stories and audiobooks nowadays for beginners? Like, is there a point of getting into it?
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's so many of these like avid readers, avid listeners, and they're always looking for new entertainment, new stories. So yeah, definitely. And once like a customer finds like a narrator or an author that they like, they become very loyal to them and they'll listen to all their stuff.
Okay. So do you have like one brand name where a lot of these books fall under, so that people can, if they like one of your books, they can find the rest as well? Is that what you do? Or?
Yeah, so I use pen names, which is basically just like Mark Twain is a pen name.
Okay.
It's just basically a made up name. Now for my horror stories, I'm just using my name now, so Michael Vandervoort. So if you want to see like what my horror books look like, you just type in my name to Amazon in the ebook category, and you should see my horror stories.
Interesting. Cool. A lot of interesting tips, different perspectives on Amazon merch, Etsy, and this audiobook or ebook business model. Very interesting. Thanks a lot for coming onto the podcast, Mike. And for anyone who wants to learn more from you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm on YouTube. My channel is Michael Vandervoort. You can just type in like trendy niches, merch by Amazon, and
it'll be in the description as well, all the links. But YouTube is the first one, yeah.
And then I also have Instagram, so I post like my daily sales for both merch by Amazon and Etsy. I also post like gym pics, lifestyle pics, entrepreneur pics, just like my life down here in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. I'm born and raised in Mill Valley, California, but I've been living in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico for the past 18 years. And I also have a TikTok account as well, and it is my name, Michael Vandervoort.
Okay, cool. Right, thanks a lot for coming on.
All right. Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.